You think you are the master of your own life, don't you? You believe your desires are truly yours, that your choices are free, and that the tightness in your chest you feel when you wake up is just a passing error, something the next paycheck or the next trip will surely cure. Look at me. I am here to tell you that you are nothing more than a puppet. You are not a person. You are a walking hunger, a blind and irrational impulse we call will. You feel that emptiness, don't you? That sensation that no matter how much you achieve, it is never enough? Why do you feel this way? When did you accept the lie that happiness is something waiting for you just around the corner? Are you living or merely enduring your days, waiting for a relief that never truly arrives? The truth, the one you try to drown in phone notifications and cheap distractions, is that your existence is a cruel oscillation between pain and boredom. When you desire something and do not have it, you suffer from lack, from absence, from the pain of deprivation. But the moment you obtain what you wanted, what happens? Joy lasts only a breath, and then boredom arrives, that gray weight revealing that your life, in itself, has no content when it is not being driven by a painful desire. You are like a soap bubble, striving to remain inflated for as long as possible, fully aware that bursting is inevitable. I see how you run. You chase goals as if they were salvation. Yet for every desire fulfilled, 10 new ones appear to torment you. The math does not add up. You have an infinite numerator of wanting and a miserable denominator of having. You are trapped in a mill, grinding yourself down to feed a force that does not even know who you are. This will, which is the essence of everything that exists, is blind, purposeless, endless. It wants only to exist, and you are merely the fuel it burns to keep its senseless fire alive. Do you feel guilty for your sadness? Do you feel like a failure because you are not the winner the world demands you to be? Let me lift this burden from your shoulders, not out of kindness, but out of realism. You were born to suffer. Every biography is the story of suffering. Your selfishness, this habit of believing the world revolves around your navel, is simply proof that the will within you is as hungry as the will within the wolf that devours the lamb. You are a wolf to others, even when you try to be polite. You use people, you compete, you envy. And do you know why? Because you believe in the illusion of individuality, in this veil of Maya that makes you think you are separate from the rest of the world. You are alone in your pain because you have locked yourself inside your own representation, in this little mental theater where you are the protagonist of a play no one else is watching. Why are you still surprised by the cruelty of the world? Why do you cry when someone betrays you or when life trips you up? Pain is the only positive and real thing in life. Well-being is merely its temporary absence. Happiness is a mirage, a brief interruption of disaster. You waste your energy trying to avoid the inevitable, pretending that death is not seated at your table at every dinner. You endure your days because you are afraid to stop and realize that no one is in control. You are a slave who loves his own chains because he fears the void that would appear if they were broken. Look at me and answer. How long will you keep pretending that this hunger consuming you has an end? I did not learn these truths in dusty books or comfortable classrooms. I learned them in the world, witnessing human misery up close, since I was merely a young man on my grand tour through Europe. While others admired monuments, I saw suffering in hospitals, in prisons, in the faces of those sentenced to forced labor. I saw that life everywhere and under every regime was the same inglorious struggle for survival. I watched my own father take his life, perhaps crushed by the unbearable weight of desire. How could I ignore that the will is a tyrant that spares no one? I realized that my mind, that intelligence I was so proud of, was nothing more than a servant. My intellect is merely the guide the will uses to find what it wants to consume today. Imagine a blind, strong man carrying a crippled man on his shoulders. The blind man is the will, powerful, unstoppable, but directionless, The crippled man is the intellect. He sees the path, but has no strength of his own to move. That is how you and I are made. My ideas, my discoveries, were nothing more than the crippled man trying to persuade the blind one not to fall off a cliff. I lived surrounded by the noise of society, and nothing taught me more about human stupidity than noise. In my time, it was the crack of whips in the streets that murdered thought. That sound cut through my brain like an executioner's axe. Why do people tolerate noise? Because they have nothing inside themselves. They need noise, so they do not hear the silence of their own emptiness. I saw this in my own mother's salon, where empty minds gathered to kill time with gossip and games. They were not seeking connection. They were seeking amusement, a narcotic against boredom. It disgusted me. I realized that sociability is inversely proportional to a man's intellectual value. The more you have within yourself, the less you need this marketplace of vanities you call friendship. My truth came from bitter introspection. I looked at my own body and understood. It is the will made visible. My teeth are objectified hunger. My legs are the impulse to walk. My reproductive organs are the will's demand to continue the species at any cost, even if that means more suffering for those yet to come. There is no separation between what I am and what I desire. I am desire. This realization is like lifting the veil from a statue of horror. You understand that you are not a pure soul inhabiting a machine, but a piece of flesh driven by an infinite and senseless wanting. I tried to warn others. I tried to show that the only real freedom is to deny the will, to stop being fuel for the fire. And what did I receive? Silence and contempt from academics, from those who make a living teaching comforting lies about the spirit of the age or how the world is supposedly improving. They called me a pessimist. But I ask you, who is the true pessimist? The one who reveals the disease so that a cure may be sought, or the one who claims gangrene is a sign of progress? I reached this truth through isolation, learning to carry my solitude as a shield against the vulgarity of the masses. I learned that genius is the ability to contemplate pure ideas, the world as representation, without allowing the will to drag one back into the swamp of personal interests. It is a daily struggle not to be devoured by one's own desire. And you, are you willing to stare into the abyss of your own nature? Or would you rather keep dancing to the music of a master who despises you? Now look at your world. What do you see? You live in a society that constantly tells you that you can. Yes, we can. You have created a dictatorship of positivity. In my time, prisons and barracks enforced obedience through fear. Today you enslave yourselves through performance. You have no external master whipping you. You hold the whip yourself and lash your own back in the name of productivity, success, and becoming the best version of yourself. You are both the exploiter and the exploited, and the result? An epidemic of burnout, anxiety, and depression. You are exhausted by yourself, aren't you? Your social networks are the new veil of Maya, even more perverse. You consume other people's lives as if they were products and feel worthless because your own representation does not shine as brightly as someone else's filter. You live in a state of hyperattention, jumping from stimulus to stimulus like animals in the jungle, terrified of missing out, incapable of stopping to contemplate what truly matters. You have killed deep boredom, the kind that allows reflection, and replaced it with constant connection, which is, at its core, the height of loneliness. You are like porcupines on a cold winter day. You need each other's warmth to avoid freezing, yet you wound one another with your quills of resentment, competition, and selfishness the moment you get too close. What this means today is that you are more lost than ever. Your bonds are liquid. Your relationships are connections you can delete at the first sign of discomfort. You do not love. You consume the other to soothe your own existential emptiness. You work until you collapse because you believe your value is measured by what you achieve, failing to see that capitalism has merely replaced repression with voluntary self-exploitation. You are a hamster running on a wheel that spins faster and faster. and you call this freedom. There is no happy ending waiting for you if you continue down this path. Your anxiety is not a chemical error. It is the scream of the will within you, realizing that the world you have built offers nothing but smoke and mirrors. What is the way out? I will not give you a magic formula. The exit begins with denial. It begins with no. The power of negative potential. The power not to do, not to want, not to participate in this theater of horrors. You must reclaim the ability to be alone, to endure your own silence without the desperate need to grab your phone and flee from yourself. Individual salvation, if it exists at all, lies in 3 paths you despise. First, art. Not the cheap entertainment you consume, but art that forces you to stop and lose awareness of your ego for a moment, where the object is not something to desire, but something simply to be. Second, compassion. Not condescending pity, but the genuine realization that the pain of the other is your pain, because you are made of the same suffering essence. And third, asceticism. Healthy austerity. Detachment from infinite desires. The courage to have little so that you may be more than an insatiable stomach. This is my final warning to you. The clock is running, and the will grind you down until nothing remains but regret and boredom. You may continue as a slave to "I can," or you may begin the difficult path of renunciation. Freedom is not found in getting what you want, but in no longer being enslaved by wanting. The world is an asylum, and the gates are open for those brave enough to look at the truth without blinking. Would you rather die as an exhausted consumer, or begin to live as a lucid human being? The choice, if you still have one, is yours.